Alright, here we are on the first day of 10.7. This is about area now. So what I need you to pay attention to first off is, since it's area is the amount of space inside of the circle. We need to understand the difference between what we talked about yesterday with circumference and the fact that today area is measuring the inside space. So hopefully you remember the formula from earlier this year, but if you don't, I have the little rhyme to the right. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear, area equals pi r squared, where r has to be the radius. So you don't have the option for this one to use the diameter at all. You have to use the radius there. And then the second thing we're going to be able to find the area of today is what's called a sector. I want you to imagine a sector as being like a slice of pie. I know this is a really big slice of pie, but that slice of pie, slice of cake, slice of pizza, that's what a sector is. It's that whole chunk, that whole gray piece is what we want when we have a sector. It's just really, though, a fraction of the area. It's just a smaller section of the circle than the whole area. So all you're going to see for the formula is we have this formula here. It's similar to the arc length formula, but instead of the fraction times the circumference times 2 pi r, the difference today is it's times the area, because we're looking for that whole space inside. So you see the area formula here at the end. So number 1, the directions are asking us to find the area of the circle or the sector depending on what they're giving us. So we're going to bounce between those formulas. When we look at number 1, it is a whole circle. So since it's a whole circle, I want to use the whole circle formula. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear, area equals pi r squared. But if I look at number 1, I do not know the radius. That's the diameter. You cannot use that in the formula. It has to be the radius. So the radius would be half of that, it would be 3. So that's going to be pi times 3 squared. And you're just going to square the 3, not the pi. And you'll get 9 pi meters. The meters are squared today because we were doing area. We're talking about the amount of space that's inside. So you need to make sure you put square units on all the area ones today. Alright, number 2. We are now just looking for this sector. So for the sector, we don't want the whole circle. We're not going to use the whole circle formula. We're going to use a fraction of the circle. We want 45 out of the 360 degrees. And then it's times pi times the radius is 18 squared. So you're again going to type this in on your calculator with everything but the pi. So I'm typing in 45 divided by 360 times 18 squared. I'll show you what my calculator looks like again. So we get an answer of 40.5 pi yards squared. Okay? So number 3, again, we're looking not for the whole circle, but for this section. So we need to think about how many degrees that is. That section measures 90 out of 360, and then we're finding the area of it, so we're doing the area formula next, which is pi times 16 squared. So I'm typing in 90 divided by 360 times 16 squared, everything but the pi. The area of this section would be 64, don't forget to put the pi in, 64 pi centimeters squared. Okay. Number 4. We are trying to find the yellow sector, the one that's shaded. So just be careful with a problem like this, because this side is 90, but that's not the sector we need. So you have to think like we did on that first day of making sure you're using the right arc. So you've got to do 360 minus 90 first to figure out what the major arc is in the picture. We want the 270 is the section we want. So make sure you're using the right measurement. It's 270 over 360. Times pi times the radius is 4 squared. I type that in. I get 12 pi 8 squared. Okay? Alright, so I want you to answer 5 and 6 on your own in the video, or in the Edpuzzle video, and then I will explain them, and then I'll work them out afterwards. So for number 5, it's a whole circle, so we're not going to do a fraction, we're going to do the whole circle formula, which is pi r squared. The radius, though, has to be half of that, which is going to be a decimal, so you do have to do 5.5 squared, which means you're going to get a decimal in front of the pi, which is perfectly fine. You're going to just leave it as 30.5 0.25 pi centimeters squared. Okay? And then number 6, you had to think very carefully about what it is that you want the area of there. The part that I want the area of is this whole shaded part, which is not the 45, it's the other section. So you had to subtract and get 315 first as the section that you're trying to find the area of. And then it's 315 over 360 times pi times, also be careful here, the radius is going to be 8. The 16 is measuring the diameter. I need to make sure I'm putting 8 in when I plug it in the radius. And if I type that in my calculator, I get 56 pi centimeters squared. Okay? The last problem is another word problem where you have to think about what it is asking you to find here. So if you look at 7, it says some farmers use a circular irrigation method. An irrigation arm acts as a radius of an irrigation circle. How much land is covered with an irrigation arm of 300 feet? So what this is looking like is here we have this arm that would be spraying out water. It's going to spray out water over a section. As it sprays out water, it's going to travel in a circle around the field. So it's going to make a big, huge circle here. And it's going to be able to cover all of that space as it rotates. It's going to get covered with that water that's spraying out. And they're telling you the arm length is 300 feet. They want to know how much of the land is covered. So it doesn't tell you directly here, but because we're talking about the space that it's covering, it's going to cover all of this space. It's going to get water in it. So we are looking for area because we're looking at how much space is being covered. So you have to read into that in the problem, and it's of the whole circle. So it's going to be area equals pi r squared. And I know the radius is 300. So if I do 300 squared, I get 90,000 pi. And since this is a real world problem, they want you to put the pi in the calculator. And we're going to just round to the nearest whole. So that's approximately 28,274 square feet is what would get covered by that irrigation arm. Okay? So there are some problems on Class Kit for you to try, and then there are problems on the homework. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.